Okay, can everybody see this?
Thank you. All right, we'll do
Yeah.
it the best we can.
Yeah, if you you just let me know and I'll try and pull them up, okay?
Sure, I appreciate it. All
Yeah.
right. And so, hi guys, I'm Danielle. I'm the National Sales Manager with Farmina.
Oh, your mic cut out. Sorry.
My goodness, so sorry, the mic turned off on me. He'll be taking care of you for your day-to-day stuff. But we're going to do some training here today just on the line in general, over the overview of the line. So, I'm guessing most of you guys aren't super familiar with Farmina. We are from Italy, so we're going to be probably your only European brand, would be my guess. And with that, the game kind of changes. Two pieces. First and foremost is ingredient integrity goes through the roof, and so does the safety standards. So to start out with safety. We've been around since the 60s, 1965, and never had a recall. And there's reasons for that. We do so many safety testings at our facilities, at each of our facilities. There is a lab on site. So when the truck pulls up with our raw ingredients, we test everything: yeast, mold, microtoxin, everything gets tested before it even enters the facility. After that, during process, the food is tested again for the same things, and then the final product tested again. And just in case you don't trust us, we send that off to a third-party lab and have it tested a fourth time. So that's how you stay recall-free in this industry, is just superior safety measures. Ingredient integrity is also huge for us. I'm sure when you guys go to Whole Foods or the grocery store, you'll see a lot of stuff that has those EU stickers, because I think as a whole, the world has recognized that the European Union just has higher standards for quality on their foods. So what does that mean? That means a whole lot of no's, a whole lot of what's not allowed into that bag. So no genetic modifications allowed. Not even with the lambs and the chickens that we use in our food. Those guys can't even have a genetically modified grain, because we want to keep that meat as clean as possible without genetic modifications. We can't put anything in these bags that you and I can't eat. So when I say human grade, it's truly human grade. That eliminates, of course, meals and byproducts. We don't eat off the rendering floor, neither do our pets. Meals are fine. Don't get nervous, because most of your kibbles are going to have meals. They are concentrated protein, and they work great in that sense. However, with Farmina, one of the reasons we especially won't use those is because they are heavily processed. And as you see as we go through this presentation today, we're trying to stay as close to the raw diet as we possibly can. Basically, these are carnivores. Give them meat, things go well. And don't mess with it as little as possible, so low processing. And meals get cooked down and cooked down and cooked down until you have that kind of concentrated protein, that powder, like fairly similar to the protein powder you'd put in a shake in the morning. So we just don't want that high process. Instead, we can do the same thing, get high meat-based protein into the diets by just using whole meats and dehydrated meats. And when I say dehydrated, think turkey jerky, think just water extraction. So again, not messing with it too much, keeping that process low. Alex, if you can scan up just a little bit for me.
What do you mean by scan out? Move it. Oh, hold on a second.
I could only see like down to cold pressed light essentials. There
okay.
You go. Yeah, that. Thank you. Another part of Italy is the cruelty-free aspect, and that's twofold. One, the chickens, the lambs, the ducks, everything that we use in our food, all of our proteins are either wild caught or farm raised. So our fish come out of the North Sea, some of the cleanest waters in the world. The wild caught boar, hills of Tuscany and Umbria, where they've killed the wolves and now they have a wild boar population problem, which makes it a really sustainable meat. But then for our farmed animals, and chickens don't run around in the wild, so we have to farm those guys. It's a little bit different. I don't know if you have them where you guys are. I'm in Minnesota. We have these giant turkey farms where you drive past and it's an open air barn, and there's just kind of wings kind of sticking out of these cages. And that's really allowable here in the United States, to have caged animals. And of course, with that close of quarters, they're going to need lots of antibiotics because you have a lot of animals in small spaces. And then they're going to typically use steroids and hormones, things to grow them fast, because that's their business. They need to move them in and out quickly. In Europe, all that goes away. So we're not using antibiotics because we are pasture raising these animals. We're not using steroids and hormones because just let them grow. I tell people, think 1950s farm. Don't mess with the meat. And I'm sure any of you that have been in the pet industry for any amount of time have seen the increases with allergies. It seems like every other day somebody's dog is coming in with allergies. And I honestly, and this is my own personal opinion, but it can't have all of a sudden everyone became allergic to chicken or grass or dust or whatever it might be. I honestly think there's a lot to do with what we've done to the food, the process we've done to the food, what we've pumped in the meats, that now the animal's reacting to. So they may not be allergic to chicken, they may be allergic to, or not allergic, but intolerant to the things we've done to the meat. So with Farmina, a lot of times you'll find folks that say that their dog can't handle this, that, or the other, and they can handle it within Farmina because those meats are clean. On to processing here. We do things a little bit different. So, yeah, perfect. Thank you. Those cold pressed life essentials. So your traditional kibble is cooked in a big machine, right? It's called an extruder. You throw in the raw ingredients. You throw in that vitamin pack to keep folks over at AFCO happy, and you crank that machine up to about 400 degrees. And not a lot survives at those high temperatures. With Farmina, well, let me go back. So typically, that's what happens. Out pops kibble. It's a little sponge. You spray it with the fat. In the bag it goes, and off to your shelf. It's the simple way of how kibble is traditionally made. With Farmina, we do things a little different. For one, we're Italian. So instead of taking a traditional extruder, we actually took what was used to make human pasta and created a machine that would create dog food. But what that allows is a little lower temperature cooking. So again, not over processing things. On top of that, we're not putting everything in the machine. We know that heat and pressure aren't great for a lot of parts, like vitamins. So we're going to put the meat, the binder, and the fat in the machine. Out pops that little sponge of kibble. Everything else is going to get cold pressed. Alex, can you flip to the other slide that says ingredients, N&D ingredients?
Yep.
Thank you. So all of these guys down here, pomegranate, blueberry, apples, oranges, those guys are all a natural vitamin replacement. And we use liquid vitamins, but we're going to lean on nature first. So getting these guys in there. Those guys are all going to get cold pressed into the kibble. They've never been exposed to heat and pressure and all of that stuff. And that gets kind of pushed into all of those porous little holes that a kibble has. I'm sure every one of you owns a dog or a cat, and every one of you has probably seen kibble hit a water bowl. And when the kibble hits the water bowl, poof, it puffs up like a marshmallow, right? Because they're porous little sponges. We're going to fill that in with all of this good stuff here. So all of that gets cold pressed in, and then we roll them in herring oil to kind of seal them shut. So here's your first sell point I want to make. Cats especially. I don't know the technical term for it. What I call it is scarf and barf, which means a cat, by nature, eats very quick. They gorge. Typically, kibble will swell up in the stomach, and bloop, 5 minutes later, it's on your carpet. With Farmina, cats don't throw up. They don't puke. There's no more scarf and barfing. Because again, we have a heavy meat kibble cooked at low temps and then rolled and sealed up with herring oil so it doesn't swell in the gut. This can also be a nice thing for your large dogs, your barrel-chested dogs that are more prone to bloat. Don't get me wrong, we're never going to stop bloat. I'm not saying that, with Farmina you'll never have bloat, but we are removing a huge risk factor. I had a litter of 11 Great Danes, so I had 11 baby ponies running through my house. Typically with Danes, you want to try to keep them calm after they eat because they're the number one breed to bloat and have that stomach torsion. I can't chase 11 baby ponies around. So I was very happy to have Farmina because it doesn't swell. So I'm eliminating that risk factor. I'm eliminating one of the risk factors that come with bloat. And then can we go? I'm sorry. Can we go back to the and then do 3 reasons sheet? Thank you. And then the next thing we're going to talk about is how we pack our food. So that packaging right there. We do use nitrogen in our food. So if we just we don't use any artificial preservatives. So if we took this food, just put it in a bag, sealed it up, and sent it across the pond, it would be rancid before it ever got stateside. So what we do is we take the oxygen out of the bag, put nitrogen in. Nitrogen's what's in your potato chip bag. That's why potato chips are lovely. They're crunchy. They're delicious. You can feel the grease right on the surface. And they are just as fresh as the day they were packed in that factory. The same applies to Farmina. When that bag sealed in Italy, it stopped aging. So this is a huge sell point, again, for especially the kitty people. If any of you guys have cats, you know they're the pickiest little monsters in the world. And finding a diet that they want to eat and they are excited about is hard. We win the cat folks hands down because of how palatable this food is. It applies to dogs too. There just tends to be pickier cats than dogs. A couple things to point out here. Once this bag opens, you have about 6 to 8 weeks to consume it. Cats will probably start to slow down around 6 weeks. They're like, nah, we're good. So there's some different size bags. Again, with cat, you have a 3.3 bag and an 11-pound bag. The 3.3 will last, if you're feeding simply kibble, that's going to last a cat about 3.5 weeks. And that's perfect for the single cat household. That 11-pound bag, that is meant for your multi-cat household. So if you see somebody with one kitty coming in trying to buy 11 pounds because they want to buy in bulk, please dissuade them from doing so. So with dogs too, we have 2 different size kibble. We have mini and medium maxi. Mini is about the size of a pencil eraser. Maxi is about the size of a dime. The small bags come in both, so you can have both options. The 15, the middle size bag, comes in just mini. That's made for multi-dog households that have a lot of little dogs. And then the big bags you'll see only come in maxi, and that's purposeful. We only make it in the big kibble for the big bags because we're trying to eliminate a Chihuahua owner from trying to buy 6 months of worth of food at once. It's no good for them. It's going to go bad before they can get through the bag. So again, 6 to 8 weeks, help them buy the right size for their pet. And it's okay, the formula is exactly the same. I happen to have an 85-pound Husky Malamute, and he eats a partial raw diet and a partial Farmina diet. I can't go through a full 26-pound bag under that 8 weeks. So he gets a 15-pound bag. It's a mini kibble. It's all right. He's going to eat small kibble. It's just fine for him. Another piece here, too, is, again, if you get truck and there's a hole, puncture, tear, anything in a bag that you're unloading, please send it back to Ziegler's because we don't know when the clock started ticking on that bag. As well, if you rip, tear a hole in a bag, this is not something you can slap a piece of tape on and put back on the shelf, so try to sell that sucker quickly. Any questions so far? Good? All right. So I'm going to hit the 2 top things that I really want you to absorb from this training today, which is low glycemic and animal protein. These are crucial. Again, we're talking carnivores. These are probably the 2 most crucial things I want you to leave with. Cats, low glycemic, especially towards cats. 1 in 50 cats will become diabetic in their lifetime. I want that to sink in just for a second because that is an enormous number. You can eliminate the barn cats. You can eliminate the outside cats. Those guys are eating the original raw diet. They're fine. They're eating mice and birds. They're not getting diabetes. It's our house cats that have been fed high-carb kibbles their entire lives that are ending up with diabetes left and right. If you haven't had somebody come in with a diabetic cat into your store, they will because there's so many of them. Farmina is one of the few foods out there that is truly a low glycemic and safe for our diabetic friends. But quite frankly, it's for all cats that you don't want to become diabetic, so hopefully everyone. So this is because we are a meat-based protein. We are heavy meat-based protein, not heavy carbohydrate, and that's perfect for an obligate carnivore. This again applies to dogs. You're just going to see diabetes a lot more in cats. Animal proteins, this is the big guy. Again, I can't say it enough. These are carnivores. Feed them meat, things go well. Alex, can you pull up it should say prime pumpkin, something to that effect. the second one. That one. Yep. Thank you. So when I say we use a ton of meat, we use an absolute ton of meat. This is our prime line. You'll have it. You have this in cat. In a 15-pound bag, almost 32 and a half pounds of meat go into that guy. For the pumpkin, further down, it's 26 and a half pounds. Same for ancestral grain, 26 and a half pounds of meat going into a 15-pound bag. It's a lot of meat. But even bigger than that is the number right next door to it, which is that 98% or 96%. That is where your protein comes from. Does it come from a plant? Does it come from an animal? When your customer walks in that door and they flip a bag and they see the word protein, 30%, protein, 40%, their brain tells them meat, and that's just not true. Of course, protein comes from meat, but it also comes from soy. It also comes from peas, potatoes, chickpeas, all sorts of things. Grains have a protein. So that number is not just meat. That is a lot of plants sometimes. We are one of the few companies that will disclose it and tell you exactly where your protein's coming from. We are also the highest in the industry, which is why we disclose it. So, but this is huge for health issues. We'll go back to the cats. I try to do a lot of talk about cats because I think they get overlooked a lot in the industry. Cats, urinary issues. Y'all know that you need moisture. You need canned food to keep urinary issues at bay. Cats don't get enough water, especially if they're kibble-fed cats. Canned food is great, absolutely. The other half of urinary issues is protein. Are they eating a bunch of plants as an obligate carnivore, or are they eating meat? They should be eating meat. When you give a carnivore plant-based proteins, you're going to change the urine pH. You're going to change where it sits. Plants, that's going to make a much more alkaline urine. And if you've taken chemistry before, that alkaline environment, that's where you grow bacteria. So now you have cats that are getting all these UTIs. You feed meat-based proteins, boom, that urine pH goes right into that nice acidic level, that 5 to 7 pH where it's supposed to be. And that helps to keep UTIs at bay. That's the normal urine pH that cats should have. So something we've noticed with Farmina is cats tend to stop having UTI issues, just on all of our food. Now we have that specialized one, urinary, in our quinoa line. We have that, and that's really built for struvite crystals. It'll work on a UTI as well, but quite frankly, it's a little overkill. All of the foods are going to help keep that acidic urine. Animal proteins in dogs, this is skin and coat issues all day long. I'm sure, again, for you guys that have been in the industry a long time, you've taken a dog that is itchy or he's chewing on his feet or has yeasty ears, and you've taken them off kibble and put them on raw, and boom, all that stuff starts to go away, and these beautiful plush coats show up. And it's not some sort of magical omegas. It's literally you gave a carnivore meat, and their organs know what to do. Again, even dogs as scavenging carnivores, not obligates like cats, but even as scavenging carnivores, they've adapted a little to plant proteins. They're able to process them, but it takes more work. It takes more enzymes for that to happen. And the organs are the most important. The body's going to protect them, which means it's going to rob the body of enzymes to help those organs out, to help process, to help digest and absorb the nutrients they need. When that happens, something has to give. Where did those enzymes come from? Well, the skin and coat kind of gets the short end of the stick. So you end up seeing dogs, if you're feeding a lot of plant protein, you'll see dogs start to get dander, and maybe then they have the itchies. And maybe then they start chewing on their paws and they're getting red, or their ears are filling up with yeast. All sorts of things kind of go bonkers. It's also the reason when you start feeding meat-based proteins, whether it be raw or a Farmina, things start to go back to normal. You get these big plush coats you're supposed to have. From a digestive system, you see less poop in the yard, more compact poop, because the body is functioning as it's supposed to. Basically, the organs are like, woo, it's meat. We know how to do this. We don't need all you extra enzymes. Go back and do the jobs you're supposed to do. Take care of that skin and coat. So again, this is something that you should be walking folks over to Farmina for, is when you see dull coats, itchy coats, dander starting, or those yeasty ears on a shepherd, red bellies on a pitty, those kind of things. We can fix a lot with nature. The other thing I wanted to point out when we're talking about these high levels of meat protein, you don't feed as much. You won't feed as much at all. That's one of the most distinctive things. I think sometimes people will look at price and be like, well, Taste the Wild is $50 and you're 70. I'm going to go with the $50 bag. But when you break it down to how much you feed, we're actually less expensive because you'll feed, sometimes half as much, depending on what they're coming from or what they're switching from. So that bill isn't nearly as big. The other part too, you're saving on those vet visits. If you've been going into the vet because your dog is itchy all the time, or you have them on Apoquil, or one of the other ones, those kind of things, those add up quickly. If you can fix that dog or that cat from the inside out with nutrition, you're going to save, number one, stress on that dog. Number two, money, taking them to the vet constantly. Number three, foods that have way more fillers are going to cost more in the long run. So these are cost efficient for folks. Any questions on that stuff? Really quick before I forget, I want to go back between ancestral grain versus pumpkin for dog. They're essentially the same food. You're literally picking what it's stuck together with. What binder do you want? Do you want 20% oats and spelt, or do you want 20% cornstarch and pumpkin? It doesn't matter. Everything else kind of stays the same. So it's kind of up to the consumer what they like. I personally lean on pumpkin a lot more. I do fostering. I have foster dogs. I don't like cleaning my yard. I would much rather the digestive system stay nice and clean than anything. So I tend to go the pumpkin route. It is the number one best-selling line is pumpkin. Within that line, the lamb pumpkin is the strongest seller. Lamb is easy on the belly. Add that with pumpkin, you've got a nice digestive pairing. On the ancestral grain side of things, we use spelt and organic oats. Really healthy grains, ones that haven't been genetically modified, haven't been messed with by humans, very clean, and used that very minimal amount just to kind of hold the kibble together. Without a binder, you'd have a bag full of meat flakes, so we have to have something in there. So very nice, healthy grains. One thing to note, your dog has probably never had spelt. I'm guessing most of you probably haven't had spelt. So going a little bit slow on transition, maybe 7 days, is best when you're dealing with ancestral grain versus the pumpkin. With the pumpkin built in, as well as some of those anti-inflammatories like turmeric and green tea that are going to keep a nice calm digestive system. They're also in the ancestral grain, but with the pumpkin side, you may only need like 3 to 4 days of transition. Excellent. This next portion I'm just going to talk through because the quinoa slides were too large to send through that email. So we're just going to talk through it. So quinoa is our functional line. If your store was in Rome, Italy, you could sell vet food because food is food and there are no prescriptions. So if you need a bag of renal, you walk to your pet store and you pick it up. When they came to the United States, they're like, what is this? And this is where quinoa was born. It was a way to take care of some simpler functions, some simpler, I will say, pathologies lately that we could take care of at a retail level to help that pet parent out without needing a prescription diet. The 4 functions are urinary, weight management, skin and coat, and digestion. Urinary is only for cats. We don't make a dog formula. I get asked constantly, why can't we get dog? Let's get a dog formula going. The reason being there is when a cat has a urinary issue such as struvite crystals, it's a standalone. That is the problem. We just need to fix the crystals. We need to fix the UTI, whatever it might be. When a dog shows up with urinary issues like repeat UTIs or repeat crystals, that tends to be a symptom of something larger going on, and we don't want to play vet. We don't want to mask that symptom so that the pet parent misses what's really going on with their dogs. So that's why there's no urinary formulation for dog. So let's start there. Urinary for cat. It is based on struvite management in vet lines. What it's meant to do is really work for maintaining urinary health for cats that have had crystal issues in the past. So what is it going to do? Remember when I was talking about the general cat food, I said we keep a nice acidic urine just by using meat proteins, that 5 to 7 pH. This urinary formula really squeezes that down into this tiny window. It stabilizes that urine to a 6 to 6.3 pH. What that is kind of that perfect pocket where crystals should not form. As well, we lower the pieces that make the crystal. We've lowered the elements. So we lower protein, we lower magnesium, calcium, and phosphorus. We take all those, get them just slightly below the level so that they're not going to reform. They're still nice and healthy levels of protein. This is a cat. Our normal cat food will run at 44% protein. The urinary runs at 33%. So not bottoming out the cat, but just keeping it low enough that crystal doesn't reform. This is the #1 bestseller of all cat foods. It sells 3 times higher than everything else in our line. And our cat foods in general sell very well. So you can tell how functional this is. I run the entirety of the Midwest, and for quite a long time ran the mountain range as well. I've never personally received a bag back where it didn't work on the cats to keep the cats' crystals at bay. I've gotten a bag back because they didn't like duck, but I've never gotten a bag back where the cat still got crystals after using this formula. It just works so phenomenally well. Moving on, the next 3 that I'm going to talk about are available in both dog and cat. And remember too, these formulas are available in both wet and dry food. Weight management, pretty cut and dry. It's going to be high fiber, low fat. Lets them feel full. It's going to be our lowest glycemic food. It's actually the first one we recommend if a cat or a dog is newly diabetic. And I personally have used this with rescue dogs. I've had 3 huskies come in at 100 pounds when huskies are supposed to be 50. These were enormous dogs. One could not walk more than 3 feet and then had to rest. My job as rescuer is to get at least 30 pounds off these dogs before they can be adopted. And I can do that in about 4 months, maybe 5. It is just extremely effective. And instead, a lot of times you see an increase in carbs for weight management food. We're actually keeping high protein and not boosting carbs. On here too, we're going to use asparagus and broccoli. Those are low-cal natural diuretic foods that we're going to blend in there to kind of help them, again, feel full without loading them full of extra calories. One of my favorite things to do with this SKU is the weight management wet food for dogs. I have a nice normal-sized dog. I use that weight management to fill his Kong, or to fill a trachea for, I take a trachea, fill it up, and freeze it for puppies that come in. It's a nice chew toy. It's a nice way to keep from having all these extra calories and treats. We're in the pet industry. We know that if we're going to add a lot of extra treats in the course of a day, we need to pull back a little of dinner, but your normal pet parent doesn't. So recommending a weight management food to be used within the Kong, within a trachea, with some as a filler for treats is a huge deal. So they're not packing on pounds from just treats. It's also extremely palatable, especially for your chunky monkey cat friends. So it's always a hard one to find weight management foods for cats that are actually functional. Moving on, Skin and Coat. I believe, oh goodness, I didn't send the picture. Skin and Coat is incredibly, I didn't send it, Alex, I apologize. I thought I had. It's okay. It's in your packet that I'll be mailing out to you guys. Skin and Coat is an alternative to hydrolyzed diets. So if you're familiar, hydrolyzed diets are used at vets typically when there's digestive issues, skin and coat issues. Essentially, you break down the protein small enough in the molecules that it slides by the immune system and it doesn't see it. That's what allergies really are, is the immune system setting up flares, saying, Mayday, Mayday, there's an alien in our body, we must attack it. And then you're having these red rashes everywhere. And that's another thing to point out. Allergies show up in skin, no different than us. If I'm allergic to a strawberry, I'm going to break out in blotches everywhere. If I have an intolerance to shrimp, I'm going to have digestive issues. So it's a good question to ask your pet parent that comes in when they say my dog's allergic to XYZ, is discovering is it an allergy or is it an intolerance. But our Skin and Coat formula is a way, it's not hydrolyzed. It hasn't been created that way like a vet food. Instead, it can still be used for food allergies. Instead, we're going to use unusual proteins, and we're going to keep it a little lower so the new intolerances don't grow. So we have a entirely or a 100% venison diet, 100% quail diet, single proteins, duck diet, or herring diet. There's 4 options there for people to choose from depending on what their allergy issue is. These are going to be entirely chicken-free. We know that chicken fat is not an allergen. It doesn't carry a protein, but the general public sees the word chicken and loses their mind. So these are entirely chicken-free. We're using a ton of fish oil, which also means this is going to be really high in omega-3s and keep that inflammation down. On top of that, we're going to use some boosters, and these are the big guys, the big guns. Turmeric, that's found in all of our food, but we are going to really boost it in this food. I believe it's quadrupled in this food. And what that does is gets inflammation off the body quickly. We're also going to add coconut. Coconut is full of zinc. It's just loaded with zinc, and zinc is necessary for that skin repair. So if you've ever had a dog with allergies or belly rash because they're allergic to grass or something like that, you know how horrible it is. You know that you want relief for that animal fast. And that's those boosters, that coconut and that turmeric, that's what they do. They get that redness under control so the dog stops itching and chewing themselves raw. And that coconut starts that healing process very quickly. When you get your folders in the mail, there'll be a nice, I'm a visual learner, there's a nice flyer in there showing a Boston pug, a bug. He came into one of our stores just with a beet red belly. You can tell he's been itching and scratching. And, oh, there's a good picture. Yeah. There's another one in there somewhere. That's, I think, the weight management one. But beet red belly, and within 4 days, we can get the redness down, the swelling down, so that dog is comfortable. As a pet parent, that's what you want, is that instant gratification. You just want the symptoms under control. We know that the food is going to take 6 to 8 weeks to take its full effect, but we got the symptoms under control really fast so the dog can heal. This is also my favorite recommendation here in the springtime when everything starts to bloom. Now, we can't get rid of trees. We can't get rid of grass. They're going to be there forever. But we can control the symptoms. So, again, can't get rid of the allergy, but we can try to control the symptoms. So Skin and Coat's a great recommendation if somebody's reacting to the blooms outside, because the same concept. Get the inflammation down, get that coconut to start delivering zinc and repair the skin and keep them comfortable through that allergy season.
I sent the photo that you were referring to as well. I had the lab before and after, but also there's that little Frenchie after.
Oh, yeah. So that's him before, just very beet red, and then that's him 4 days later. So incredibly quick results, and that's really what pet parents need. Again, this dog's not done. He's going to take a full 6 weeks to really get him, for that food to go all the way through his system, through the digestion system, and take full effect. But we got him comfortable very quickly, and that's really what's important there. The last one is my favorite SKU of all time. It's the best thing that we have. In my opinion, it's my favorite SKU of all, and that is digestion. Digestion is kind of your alternative to a gastrointestinal diet, and it can be used in a multitude of ways, both short-term and long-term. Long-term issues, stuff like IBD, chronic pancreatitis, that kind of stuff. This is a food that I personally had a cat that had IBD, and this is the only thing that was able to keep her alive for the last 5 years of her life. So traditionally with those kind of animals, irritable bowel disease, you typically see a dog or a cat that's dropping weight fast. Why? Because their digestive system, your GI tract, is where you absorb nutrients. And it's not working right anymore. So they're not getting proper nutrients through their food. You could feed 6 cups a day. We're still not going to get weight gain because the nutrients, there's no uptake. So with Farmina's digestion, the number one thing is that digestibility factor. It's over 90%. What that means, again, nutrient uptake. So when I put a bowl of food in front of my little cat, BB, I knew that at least 90% of the nutrients, there would be a nutrition uptake. She was a little Bengal. She was 12 pounds when she got IBD or started to show symptoms of IBD. She dropped all the way to 6. She was actively dying. With Farmina Digestion, we were able to pull her back up to 11 pounds, and that's where she stayed for the next 5 years until she passed from cancer. But that digestibility factor is huge. As well, for other issues, IBD included, we're going to do a more moderate fat level. Instead of being that 18 to 20% fat, we're going to lower that down to 12%, just a more moderate level. In comparison, weight management is down at 8%. So it's the middle level. That gives the GI, pancreas, all of those good organs a little break from having to work with high-fat foods. Also, this is going to be full of prebiotics. Y'all are probably real familiar with probiotics. Probiotics bring that good bacteria back into the gut. Prebiotics are the food for that good bacteria. It allows the gut to kind of reset itself. So long term, we have things like chronic pancreatitis and IBD. This is a great food to work with their vets. As well, you have the short term. I live again in Minnesota. You guys probably in the same boat up in Philly. Is we're playing the "what did you eat" game because the snow has melted. There's rotting leaves still outside. There's pond water to be drank. The rabbits have been everywhere. There's rabbit and goose poop all over the place. So if it smells bad, a dog will probably put it in its mouth, which means they have a big intake of bacteria, especially in the springtime. And like clockwork, I usually start to get phone calls asking me if our formulas have changed because this dog is having digestive issues. This dog is having digestive issues. And the answer is no. We didn't change any formulas. Your dog just ate everything outside that it wasn't supposed to. And what we need to do there is reset that gut. We need to do what I like to call a 3-week gut reset, which is get them on the Farmina digestion. And again, I don't care if they're feeding Nutrisource or From or Open Farm. It doesn't matter. We can use digestion as that bridge back to health. Again, we're going to have high digestibility, so even if the dog's having blowout diarrhea, we know that it's getting the nutrients it needs, and we're going to help maintain weight and health in that way. Those prebiotics are going to get in there and kind of reset that GI tract, get it upright the way it's supposed to be, and then again, lower fat levels, so we're not stressing out the pancreas and the GI while it's trying to heal. Here we have those added botanicals as well. We add artichoke, that helps support the liver. And then also fennel and mint, which kind of soothe the stomach when they're going through some of these digestive issues. It does work incredibly well. If you guys have in store, I haven't been in your store since I'm far away, but a great pairing with digestion is goat's milk. That way you have your natural probiotics paired with our natural prebiotics that are running around, and it's just a great marriage for digestive health when a dog or a cat has gotten into something that they're not supposed to, some sort of bacteria-ridden item. As well, this is a great one on the cat side. Great to recommend for your litter box issues, or again, cats that are vomiting not because of scarf and barf, not just after meals, but just vomiting randomly. This is a great one to recommend in those spots. Want to recap here the two biggest things before I go into the canned food. The things I would really like you to take away, like when should I be walking folks to the Farmina section of the store? There's 5 main ones for cats. One are picky cats, because again, heavy meat, rolled in herring oil, cooked at low temperatures, sealed in nitrogen. This is the filet mignon of cat foods. 2 are diabetic friends. These are low glycemic foods. These are safe for our diabetics. Number 1 recommendation there is going to be always weight management, followed by anything for the cats in the prime line. So your lamb, your chicken, your boar, your fish. 3 is our scarf and barfers, our kids that throw up right after eating. Those kitties, this is, again, a nice sealed food, low temperature cooking, so it's not going to come right back up. 4, urinary issues. So again, meat-based proteins keeps acidic urine, less likely to have urinary issues moving forward in general. That's all of our foods. The last one I didn't talk about, I forgot, which is hairballs. Hairballs, I tend to recommend anything for cats with hairballs. I recommend anything in our pumpkin line. Pumpkin is rich in fiber. It tends to break down that hairball and push it out so it doesn't come back up. So, and our pumpkin line also brings a ton of great flavors for cats. Cats get a lot of chicken and fish. By having some of those pumpkin flavors, you can do venison and quail and just some more unusual stuff for kitties. On dogs, the two biggest ones that you're going to walk to Farmina for are, again, digestion or skin and coat. Those are the health issues you really want to nail down. Our regular pumpkin line, going to be great for your general digestive issues, for general skin and coat, little itchies. Then you can use our quinoa lines, skin and coat, or digestion when they're the bigger things like severe allergy, IBD, what did Fido eat, environmental allergies, those kind of things that are a little bigger in scale, lean on the quinoa diets there. Any questions so far before we jump into raw cans?
I actually have a question.
Sure.
So if you have a dog that you want to maybe switch foods within the line, how easily, like, I know dogs are so different than cats. Cats, they can switch and have all different flavors and everything else. Dogs, you really can't do that. But how about switching within the line?
Sure, absolutely. I agree with you. People ask me all the time, like with cats, like, should we do a transition? I'm like, good luck to you. Cats do what they want. But with dogs, yes, you can. These are made for rotational diets within their line. So if you're on pumpkin chicken, you can just grab a bag and move into pumpkin lamb or pumpkin boar or pumpkin fish. Or same with ancestral grain, you have chicken, lamb, and fish to work with. What I don't suggest is the jumping between ancestral grain to pumpkin, back to ancestral grain. The reason being is, again, those grains can, the grains, although great, if your dog's not used to them, they can go a little wonky. It takes a little bit for them to get used to them. So if you have an iron stomach dog, go for it. But traditionally, I like to stay within the line that you're in.
How about weight management and digestive?
Sure. Weight management, because it is a low-cal food, you can jump right on there. Right, I just drop them right in there. Or not, I'm sorry, low-cal, low-fat. So you're not going to have a lot of reaction there. So jumping right onto weight management shouldn't cause an issue. Digestion, usually I say the same thing, because when people are picking up the bag of digestion, typically we're below at diarrhea level. We're having already problems. It can't get any worse. Just throw them on it and go.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Which reminds me, one other thing you reminded me of when we were talking. Pumpkin fish, our ocean codfish and pumpkin. This is a product that I forgot to mention earlier, and I really want to point it out. It's an incredibly great food. So if somebody can't afford, let's say, the skin and coat, this is a great one to recommend. It is a single protein food, and it's extremely high in omegas. In fact, the omega ratio flops. There's twice as many omega-3s to omega-6s in this food. It's kind of an oddball in that way. I've never seen anything like it outside of pet food. What I personally use it for, and this is a nice sell point for you guys in store, is this season. When the snow has stopped, spring has started. Again, I have huskies. We go through spring blow. Your German Shepherds, your Labs, all of those double-coated dogs are about to drop their entire undercoats. My house will look like a snow globe here in a week or two. And I will put Thor on, I will put him on the fish, the fish pumpkin, because of those omega-3s. That's going to take inflammation off the skin. It's going to soften the fur, and pop, 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 I can get that undercoat out in half the time I used to have to spend to get his undercoat out. So if you have dogs that come in that look like, their whole hip, they have spots missing because they're starting to blow coat, Farmina Ocean codfish and pumpkin is your best recommendation there. All right, on to raw cans. Let's look at this.
Just so sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Could we just touch on neutered cat formula? Because I believe we do have prime chicken neutered cat in the mix there.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I always forget neutered. Thank you. So neutered cat, really quick. This is what I like to call fat lazy cat. So in Europe, they call it neutered. Basically, you've removed hormones from an animal. They're going to have different dietary needs. This is kind of your indoor cat formula. The cat that likes to sit in the windowsill and not do a whole lot of running around. That's your neutered cat formula. Fat lazy cat. It's not as strong as, so weight management means this cat is obese, we need to get weight off of him, versus neutered would be your maintenance formula for a cat that tends to gain weight or tends just to not move around so much. It's going to be a more moderate fat level, more moderate calorie level. But that's what the neutered cat formula is for. And again, incredibly palatable, so they don't feel like they're missing out. Thanks, Marshall.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt as well?
Sure.
Hi, everybody. I'm Phil. If you don't know me, I'm your Giggler rep. So I am a huge fan of the neutered cat. I had a cat with severe intestinal issues that he would just stop eating the digestive. Neutered also has a higher amount of fiber in it. So, of course, he was an indoor cat who didn't like to run around or do anything, so he should have been on neutered to begin with. But the extra fiber that was in there really helped settle his stomach as well. So, again, if you have a cat that might need to be on digestive, but again, for any reason, the owner doesn't want to go on digestive, so they don't want to go on, they don't want to pay the extra money for digestive, or the owner, of course, won't admit that their cat has digestive issues. Neutered is also a really good way to go.
Great recommendation. Absolutely. Excellent. Okay, moving on to raw cans. So similar to our kibble, we do raw cans a little bit differently as well. So your normal cans are made in a big stew. Usually you lose a lot of moisture, so there's the first or second ingredient typically is going to be water or broth that's been added back in to get that moisture back in. Then typical canned foods will add some sort of gum, guar, xanthan, carrageenan, something to thicken. It's an emulsifier. And it thickens up that water or broth and makes the can look consistent. It makes that gravy that we all like to look at. But quite frankly, gums are just used for the human eye. It's just to make it look pretty for us. In fact, they're a gut irritant for our pets, so they don't really need to be in there. Farmina does it. Let me finish that. So it gets cooked in that batch, gums added, then it's put in the can, and then it's cooked again a second time, and that's how general cans are made. With Farmina, we do it a little different. This is a raw can. It is not raw; it's been cooked. However, all we do is we take the can, we put the meat, the fruits, everything in raw, and we just steam it shut. There's no water or broth added. There's no gums added. We didn't mess with it. This whole theme is all about use meat, don't mess with it too much. And that's what we do. So it just gets steamed to 158. That's the temperature bacteria dies. If you've ever canned green beans, or your mama or your grandma ever canned green beans, this is the same concept. Just bring it up to the point that bacteria dies and leave it alone. And that's what the raw cans are. What does that mean? That means it's going to have a high calorie load, very similarly to the kibble, which means you're not going to feed so much. Which is down here at the bottom of the sheet that we'll be sending you out. Here's a great comparison to our raw can to a valid competitor. It's a good brand that we're comparing to. Both, we're using salmon here. Same size can, but look at the difference here in metabolized energy. On Farmina, you're hitting 1120 and almost double that of the competition at 618. So our can might be 20 cents more expensive, 30 cents more expensive. We're comparing cats here. But you're getting almost twice the calorie load, almost twice the kcal, that metabolized energy. So you don't have to feed as much, and you're actually saving money by going through Farmina. Who else we can use this with? This is a great recommendation for your raw fed folks that are traveling. Like I told you, I half feed raw for my dog, but when I'm traveling, I don't want my pet sitter to have to deal with that. Or if I'm going to go to a hotel with my dog, I don't want to carry a cooler with me. So I bring raw cans because it's as close as I'm getting to the raw diet. Another case where this is great, cats that have, like, if you have a cat with cancer, you need compact nutrition. You need a lot in a little package because you don't have, they may not want to eat as much. They may have a sour stomach. Same thing, I've had a dog with mega esophagus where the dogs just sit in high chairs. I had to get compact nutrition in her. Anytime you have an animal where they're maybe not as hungry because of an illness or a health problem, this is condensed energy for them. Again, no gums, so not adding extra gut irritants. Downside of this, there's consistency issues from can to can. They're not all going to look exactly the same. That's probably the only complaint I've gotten for the raw cans is like, this one's a little bit wetter than the next, or this one has more juice and this one's more solid. And that's okay. That's kind of the nature of the beast when you're not using a gum to make it fit the can or form that gravy. But we're okay with it because I'd much rather have a cleaner can. As well, no BPA in the liner. If you don't know what BPA is, it's a chemical that's put in liners. It's why your mama never fed you a dented can, because when the can gets dented, the BPA releases into the food. That chemical releases into the food. With Farmina, it's just a polymer liner, no BPA. So even if you drop it, you dent it, nothing happens to the food. Also, tin cans instead of aluminum. I'm sure you've all seen the kind of aluminum crisis with cans. So we're not having an issue with sourcing. Plus, they're super recyclable. Much more than aluminum is. And that's raw cans in general. Any questions, or Jill or Marshall, do you have anything to add about raw cans?
I may have missed it because I'm trying to navigate, but did we mention that that Farmina built our own cannery to create that technology to revolutionize the can?
Oh my gosh, no, you're right. I did not mention it, and I usually mention it in the beginning. That is one of the unique things is typically cans are made at somebody else's facility. Ourselves, and First Mate, we're the only 3 in the industry that own our own cannery and our own dry food facilities. We have full controls. So yes, we make all of our own raw cans as well as our kibble. And these are closed-door facilities. We're not making anything for anybody else as well.
So as far as the technology for making the raw cans and making their own facility for it, what's really cool is every other cannery, everything's made in one big barrel, right? So they put everything into one big batch. Stir it all around, all the vitamins and minerals are added, everything else is added, everything's put in there, and then each can goes through the machinery and goes into the can, into the can. So every can's getting a little bit of a different mix in every other cannery. In Farmina's raw cannery, it's actually made so that each individual item goes into the can differently. So kind of the way you would see like a cartoon. So it's going down the line, and each thing, like, so here's your chicken, and then here's your pomegranates, and then your next thing, and your next thing. So every single can has exactly the same mix as the next can, and that also guarantees that every single can is complete and balanced, which actually, interestingly enough, no one else can say. Every other can, if you feed a whole pack, yes, it's going to be complete and balanced, but you could have this can that has more blueberries than that can. Whereas in Farmina, you don't get that, which I thought was really cool.
Absolutely. I always like to compare it to, like, if you made stew for your family and you dished out 5 bowls of stew for your family, they're not going to have equal numbers of carrots or equal numbers of potatoes. It's kind of just whatever that popped up in that ladle. And that's very similar to your normal canned foods versus Farmina, where it's measured ingredient by ingredient, individually added to each can in a raw form. Great, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I think that makes a big difference with picky cats. We all know those people with the picky cats that they go, oh, my cat won't eat this batch, but they'll eat this batch. I think that makes a big difference when it's like, hey, every single can is exactly the same. It has exactly the same things in it. And again, just like Danielle said in the beginning, this is also why they don't need to use any water or broth for processing, and why they can make everything more calorically dense, because everything goes into the can raw and then gets cooked, not cooked in one big vat and then portioned into each can.
Excellent. Are there any other questions?
Thanks for letting me interrupt.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jill. Are there any other questions you guys have? I feel like you learned some stuff from this today.
Yeah, I'm I had no idea about how science-based your brand is, and I'm very impressed with it. So I can see why we're bringing you guys in.
Absolutely. Yep. And if you ever want on Farmina.com, always do Farmina.com /US. Otherwise, it'll be in Italian. But there's a whole a whole sheet full of links to all of our studies. You know, we have over 100 vets and nutritionalists on staff. Oh, I just saw a note come up. Yes, we are part of Astro, so you can use those for Astro
Yeah, guys,
for frequent buyers.
that's already set up, so as soon as the cans are in or the food is in, we're already ready to go, and you can tell our customers that.
I believe the cans are not populated on Astro. We're still using our very flexible envelope. We're pretty easy about it, but they are not on Astro, although we do honor buy 12 cases, get one free.
And you can just do the frequent buyer cards for the cans. Right now, just the kibble is on Astro. So, yep. And back to the science, you can go right on our website, look at all of our studies, or if you Google Farmina Cornell, you'll see one of the most recent studies that we're working on with Cornell University and Dr. Simpson. That's in peer review right now regarding IBD and issues of that sort with digestion. But yeah, tons of studies, tons of science. We didn't throw stuff in a bag and hoped it worked out. These are formulated by some of the best vets in the world. And we work with the University of Naples. They are the oldest animal nutrition program in the world. Some of the best vets in the world are working on our foods, are formulating our foods.
And as somebody whose cat does that scarf and barf thing, I'm gonna definitely have to try you guys out.
It is a big thing. When I use the word scarf and barf, you can tell who the cat people are because they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's me. That's my cat." Absolutely.
All right, so we had a little technical difficulty. It was a little unorthodox, but we got it done.
We got it done. I'm so sorry about that. I've in all these years, in 8 years, I've never had this happen where I could not get the system to work. So I apologize greatly for that.
It's okay. I'll be sending out like a recap to everybody, and you have a packet you said you're going to send to all of our stores.
Yep, I've got a packet ready here for each store. I pulled just the addresses right off the website, off your website. So I'll be mailing these out today to each store. This just goes over all the sheets that we just looked at, as well as some more. I think there's a shelf talker in here, as well as brochures for each of the lines, and more information on quinoa and some of those specialty pieces.
Awesome. All right, thank you, Danielle. Really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to our relationship moving forward, and hopefully, this whole thing kicks off really well in our stores.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure Marshall will be in no time to see all you guys and work through things with you.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, guys.
Excellent.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Marshall. Thank you, Alex, for setting this up.
Sure. We'll do it again soon.
Bye-bye.
Great. Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.